All right. Well, I'm going to let Laura introduce herself first, and then I'll take it over. But Laura, why don't you tell everybody how you got to where you are now?
Sure. Well, welcome everybody, and thank you for taking the time to be here with us. And I'm Laura, the owner of the Egoscue of Portland Clinic. And I got to know Egoscue probably over 20 years ago now when I met Brian Bradley, who's our Egoscue VP, at a conference that we were both teaching at. And at the time, I was dealing with some lower back pain and some hip pain. I was teaching spinning classes at the time and yoga classes and doing a lot of weight training and realizing now how my body was out of balance with a lot of those activities. And so what I love about Egoscue is that it just retrained my body to restore its balance from the inside out. And exploring a lot of the different exercises, I was able to recognize that some of the deeper layers of the foundational muscles weren't doing their job. And then a lot of times there's compensations that happen. So my upper back was working overtime and my lower back was feeling a lot of pain. And so by getting myself onto an Egoscue exercise menu, that gradually started to peel away some of the layers, which took the pressure out of my lower back and my hip. And I just was able to restore that balance. So it's something now that is always part of my daily repertoire, and it's made everything else that I do better. So from cycling to hiking to yoga practice. And I think just overall, the key word is restored my balance from the inside out.
Awesome. Yeah, and you want to tell people, so if you've been to any of our previous webinars, you probably recognize her as a new face. So she just recently took over the Portland clinic from Martin and Kelly McFarland. So anybody who's from the Portland area probably knows that by now. But you've been practicing kind of, you had your own clinic practice in Cannon Beach for a while.
Yeah. Yeah. So I've been doing this work for about 30 years, and I owned a wellness center in Quebec. I'm from north of Montreal. And when I moved to the coast, we're in Cannon Beach area, and I opened up a clinic called Mendloft, and I was in the Egoscue affiliate there at the time, getting to know at the same time Kelly and Martin here in Portland. And then when they announced that they were looking at leaving to continue the work, they still continue are working with the Egoscue corporate. Martin's working at our travel clinic in Denver. And so I'm so happy to have the opportunity to work closely with Kelly and Martin, and now also here with Zach in Seattle, and split my time between the Portland clinic and now we call it our travel clinic, so Mendloft in Cannon Beach.
Cool. Yeah, awesome. Well, my name is Zach Veers, and I'm the clinic owner in Seattle. I've been here, geez, it's going to be 9 years in January. So, and actually before that, I worked in the Portland clinic with Martin and Kelly. That's kind of where I got my start. Well, that's where I started working with Egoscue. I first learned about Egoscue in college. So I studied exercise sciences. I was a personal trainer, trying to figure out what I wanted to do when I grew up, and, I looked into physical therapy, but it just seemed like, you know, at least where I interned, it was seemed like a cookie cutter approach. And I saw a lot of people that were finishing their, you know, recommended physical therapy and still having lots of problems because they were just being treated for their symptoms, right? At the same time, I was learning about Egoscue from one of my professors who had used it to heal his chronic back issues. And so he was a big fan, and immediately spiked my interest, this idea that we could fix our posture naturally with exercises and that would help us feel better and perform better. So um, at the time, I thought, oh, this is great. It's something I can use with my personal training clients. But this is for old people, right? Like I don't need this. I'm invincible, 20-something-year old, right? So, well, fast forward another year or two, I was in grad school and I started having my own back and shoulder pain, playing a lot of racquetball. And so I thought, well, maybe I should give this a shot. And so I had my professor, give me a posture assessment. And then my eyes were open to how, out of alignment my body was. And then it made sense why I was hurting. It wasn't the racquetball's fault. The body I was bringing into the court was already crooked and out of balance and not moving the way it should. So it just made sense that that's why I was hurting. And so, as you can imagine, I started doing the exercises, and of course, it helped me get over my pain and kept me on the courts playing racquetball, which I loved. So that's kind of what got me initially sold on the idea. I just wanted to help others. So I got the certification, found the job in Portland, moved out there and started working with Martin. And then, like I said, about 9 years ago, came up to Seattle to run my own practice here. So, and I still do Egoscue, some sort of Egoscue every day. It keeps me going and hopefully prevent problems down the road. So um, and as we go through the presentation, feel free to, if you have questions, put them in the chat, or just interject. I mean, we'll have time at the end if there's questions that come up, but we want this to be interactive. So please feel free to chime in anytime you'd like. So, all right, let me share my screen. Okay. All right, just real quickly, for those who aren't familiar with the method, Egoscue is the name of the founder, Pete Egoscue. That's his name. I know it's a weird name, and people always ask, well, what does it mean? Where does it come from? It's just the guy's name. So he, quick story is how he was injured in Vietnam as a Marine, came back, had his own pain that nobody really could help him with. Wasn't really offered any solutions other than drugs. And so he didn't like that idea. And so, just by his own kind of curiosity and study of anatomy, and experimenting with himself, he was able to get himself out of pain, and just by simply restoring his body's balance. We'll talk about in a minute what that looks like, but he was his own first patient, and no medical background necessarily, no special training other than just his own study. And he went on to start helping other people. Eventually opened up a clinic in San Diego, and then that was in the early 80s. And now there's about 20 clinics across the states, and a couple international as well in Japan and Mexico. So that's that's where that came from. So, but today we're talking about back pain and specifically, although even if you don't have back pain, I think you'll still find this helpful because we really, this affects our whole bodies, what we're talking about. But I just threw up some of the most common diagnoses that people come to us with. So these are things you may have been told you have. Maybe you've had an X-ray or an MRI, or maybe not. But these probably look familiar. Um, and these are just the most common ones that we see. So whenever people ask, oh, do you help with arthritis? Do you help with sciatica? We don't, we're not, the big thing here is we're not treating your symptom. Their symptom is important, right? Because that's what you feel, and that's what you know, what the doctors have told you you have. And so that's important. But we want to take it a step farther and ask the why, right? Because you can have these symptoms. I don't want to overload you with, this will be the only kind of numbers that will show on here, but basically all this is showing, this is how prevalent or how common these issues on the left are. So basically different types of degeneration in our lower backs, degeneration, the discs shrinking or deteriorating, bulging. Maybe you've had some of these diagnoses yourself, but these are how likely it is based on your age. Each decade you can see the numbers get higher. So basically, the older you get, the more likely you are to have these. But these are in people that are asymptomatic, meaning they don't have any symptoms, they don't have any pain. So if we were to just, go do an MRI on 100 random people on the street who felt fine, this is basically how likely we would be to find those things. So it just shows you that, even if you've been diagnosed with these things, it doesn't necessarily mean it's causing your pain. There's a lot of people, you know, especially if you, after about the age of 60, I mean, almost 90% of people have disc degeneration and don't even feel it, right? So hopefully that should give you some hope that these things don't have to cause you pain. But it also shows how common it is. Um, so what is the pain then? We if it's not necessarily damage or caused by damage, I'm a car guy. I like to use car analogies, so forgive me, but I that's like the check engine light comes on your dash, right? Um, it's a warning signal, right? It's just telling you something's not working the way that it's supposed to in basic sense. Doesn't mean anything's necessarily broken or catastrophic, but maybe if you ignored it long enough, it would become that way, right? So hopefully, when we see that light, we want to investigate and figure out, well, what caused that light to turn on, right? Take it to the mechanic, get the code read, maybe have to do some further testing, but we don't want to just ignore it. Maybe put some tape over it so we don't see the light, right? Just like with our pain, we don't want to just mask it and not figure out what caused it, right? Because that's when your body just has to keep, it's going to keep sending you these signals until something changes, right? Or it gets worse. Um, so what is the cause of our pain? A lot of people will blame these. These are the big ones we hear a lot. Oh, it's just my age, right? I love Pete's response to that. If you've ever heard him talk about this, like especially for something like knees or hips, right? Oh, I've got a bad knee or got arthritis in my right hip needs to be replaced. Well, it's just because I'm old, right? Well, how old is your left hip, right? Or how old's your other knee? Or frankly, the rest of your body, right? Why is that joint wearing out quicker than the others? Um, so it's not your age, genetics. My dad had a bad back, my grandma had a bad back, therefore I have a bad back. You know, it's not really. Um, we haven't, as far as I know, found any back pain genes, so it's not something that is really based on genetics. In our jobs, maybe you sit a lot, and that can be a valid excuse. But again, it's what is the body that you're bringing to the job doing, right? Like me with the racquetball, I could blame the racquetball because that's when I started hurting. So I could have just given up racquetball. Maybe you just find a different job. But are you really fixing the problem? If there's an underlying issue there with your alignment and how you're moving, it's still going to be there, even if you find a different way to spend your time. So, what the real problem is, as you can probably guess, is here we're talking about posture and alignment, and this this little image I think helps illustrate that. And obviously, this house not very stable, right? Looks like it's just about to fall over. Wouldn't don't think any of us would want to go in there. And our bodies are the same, just like this house should have a level foundation and, load bearing walls that support it, should be straight and lined up properly to be able to withstand all the forces that are on it. Our bodies are in a simple sense the same way, right? Um, but when we talk about posture, we're not just talking about, oh, pulling your head back, pulling your shoulders back, standing up straight or sitting up straight. We probably all and remember our moms telling us to do that when we were younger, right? Or maybe our spouses do it now. But basically, it's really a function of our whole body. We look at your ankles, your knees, your hips, your spine, your shoulders. All these joints need to work together to support each other, and if they don't, it puts more strain on really all over the place. We're focusing on your back today, but really all the structures in our bodies are affected by their position. So I like this definition of good posture, which is all about balance, state of muscular and skeletal balance, which protects the supporting structures of the body against injury or progressive deformity, whether erect, lying, squatting, or stooping. So basically, it's not just standing. That's how we typically measure it because it's easy, it's repeatable. Um, but you have a posture when you're moving too, right? We can look at your gait. We can look at how you squat, how you sit down, how you get up. All that's controlled by muscles, right? So if your muscular system is in balance, you're going to move better, you're going to stand better, right? It's all related. So basically, what it comes down to is our bodies are made to move, right? We're movement machines. Um, And the problem is that most of us, why these things tend to get more prevalent with age, is we tend to not move as much as we get older, right? We start going to school, then we get jobs, right? And then we just spend more and more time sitting or not playing. We might try to make up for it by going to the gym, a couple hours a week. Um, but is that really enough to offset all the time we're spending not moving, right? If you think back to when you were a child, we were probably moving all the time, right? You didn't have any reason or need to be sitting for very long, right? So you were constantly in motion, and because of that, our bodies, for the most part, function perfectly, right? When we were little. So obviously, we can't just all quit our jobs and not sit anymore, right? But if we can introduce a little more healthy movement into our lives, that's going to go a long way in helping us age better, and not have as much pain as well. So in summary, if we want to fix the pain, if we really want to cure the problem, these are most common options that people use to deal with their pain. The drugs, which, by the way, all these things are not necessarily bad, right? Sometimes you need the medication. I'm not saying that, I'm not saying that you shouldn't, or the same with surgery, sometimes totally necessary. Um, but only if we're also fixing the problem, right? If we're just masking the pain and not doing anything else, or if we're just replacing the joint without figuring out, okay, well, why did that joint wear out, but not my other ones, or why is that disc herniated? Then we're just going to continue having problems, right? Um, we could just, go on vacation and not work and not move and just relax, and we'd probably feel pretty good, but realistically, we can't do that forever either, right? Or we could be like the sad baseball player sitting on the bench because he's given up the sport he loves. And maybe some of you can relate to that, right? How many have given up a sport they enjoy or an activity, because your back just bothers you every time you do it, right? I can relate to that. I had back pain, both in college, and I've had bouts a few years since. So I know what it's like to feel like you have to give up something you love, but ultimately we want to get you back to doing the things that you love by fixing the problem and not just further limiting ourselves, right? Any questions so far? Now we've talked a lot, so we're gonna let Laura teach us about what posture is and how to assess it. So take it away, Laura.
Well, the second person often that you meet when you come into one of our clinics is a guy named Freddie Function. And so this is just one image of a Freddie Function that we're going to take a look at in the next couple of slides, that our spine is really impacted by the positioning of all of the other joints in our body. So sometimes a symptom, as Zach said earlier, might be the sore low back or the sore middle back or the sore neck. But what we do at Egoscue is to uncover what's really going on. That we're not just chasing the symptom of why that back hurts, but what is out of alignment that might be causing the back to work overtime or to have more strain and stress in those joints. So we have based on an 8 load joint design. So we call these our 4 main load joints, and there's one on each side. So we look at your ankles, we look at the position of your knees, of your hips, and also of your shoulders. So if you were to look at yourself in a full-length mirror in the morning, or even just now, if you stand up and shake yourself off and you look down, or basically in a mirror is probably better, but ask yourself a really simple question. What is different? What is different on your right side and your left side? You have one shoulder that's sitting higher than the other, or maybe it's rounded forward more than the other. If you take a look at the 2 front hip bones, do you have one that's sitting higher than the other, or maybe rotated forward more than the other? So these are some cues and clues that we look for to see what might be out of balance, similar to that crooked house that you saw earlier on the slide, is if we're living in a crooked house, then our foundation isn't solid. And we start to walk, or we start to hike or bike or even pick up our groceries or play with our grandkids, and oops, all of a sudden something hurts. Well, it's the body that we're taking into that activity that might be misaligned that causes then that discomfort, that struggle or strain in our joint. So when you're standing straight ahead, We want to have those feet pointed straight ahead. We want your 90-degree angles at the joints. That's what we're looking for. So are you standing with one foot turned out more than the other, one foot turned in more than the other, or your feet straight ahead? And how is your spine? So we'll look at that next side profile. There's that. If you were to drop a plumb line straight down, it should bisect your ear, your shoulder, your hip, your knee, and your ankle. And so we take your 4 photos when you come into the clinic so that we can see, is there a straight angle between your ankle and your knee and your hip and your shoulder and your ear. And so sometimes we see these zigzaggy patterns going up the body. Most of us have a very head forward position just because of we live in this technological age, right? We're bent over our phones or our tech devices or sitting in the car, sitting at the couch. And that causes often a head that moves forward. And the more our head moves forward, the heavier it gets. So if our head is designed to weigh 10 to 12 pounds, with every 5-10 degrees, it picks up 5-10 pounds. So at a 60-degree angle, for example, of our head forward, that head is starting to weigh 60 pounds, which puts a lot of pressure on your neck and on your upper back. So that can cause more rounding of the upper spine. And so we're going to look at a few exercises here shortly that will help bring those shoulders back over the hips by re-educating the muscles that pull the shoulder blades back together. And when our shoulders are stacked better over our hips and the hip muscles are functioning optimally, we stand with better balance. So often people will come in and say, I just don't feel steady on my feet. And so it's interesting, when we have an S curve of our spine, that natural curve from the cervical spine, from the thoracic spine, your upper back, down to your lumbar spine, the forces are equally loaded across the segments of our spine. So here's your natural S curve of your spine. So if you look in the side view mirror, have somebody take a picture of you, or you come into the clinic, we'll evaluate your posture to see, are those curves still there? And are the muscles doing their job correctly to hold you in that position? Because our bones only do what the muscles tell them to do. So if the muscles have gotten weak, that's going to affect our structure and we start slumping and slouching. Or if the muscles become over tight, because possibly some others aren't strong enough, and so they're just trying to support the joint, then that also can pull the joints out of alignment. So you have a great chiropractor, you go to your visit, you feel wonderful for 24 hours, 48 hours, maybe a week, but then whoops, you go back to feeling that discomfort or pain because the muscles aren't yet doing their job to hold you in that alignment. So that's what we're helping you do, is to re-educate the muscles to do their job, to restore the function and the natural S curve of our spine and the horizontal and vertical load of all those 4 load joints, the shoulders, the hips, the knees, and the ankles.
Yeah. All right. So now that you guys have a basic understanding of how to assess posture, we're going to give you a little test here, or practice, really. It's no test, just practice. But this is a real client of mine from the past who, this is his first set of photos. We come in, this is what we do. We take pictures. We put lines on there so we can see how vertically stacked everything is. But I want you guys in the class here to just look over this, and based on what we just described, what do you see that is off? What's different than the ideal Freddy function we saw a minute ago? Go ahead and put it in the chat, or just unmute yourself and tell me what you see.
Different in the shoulders, the hips, the feet, or the kneecaps. If you were just to scan that body, what stands out the most?
The right hip is higher.
Yeah.
The head is forward.
Yeah, actually there's 2.
Yeah, and the head is forward. This is an interesting one because we see that so often, and it's not just people in Egoscue doing this. It's actually become more common now for personal trainers and your physical therapists to recognize that and try to correct it. But usually what they do is they focus on the neck, right? Oh, your neck is forward, so therefore we need to strengthen your neck and pull your head, tuck your chin, right? Well, why? Anybody have an idea of why his head is forward? If you look at the rest of his body, what else is going on?
He's leaning forward.
Yeah, I mean, his whole body is forward, right? Even if you were to pull his head back and get that ear over his shoulder, it's still wouldn't be lined up with the red line, right? Because
Forward also, the plumb line.
his whole like pelvis, his whole spine is kind of forward where it should be, right? So, yeah, what else do we see? Oops.
What about in the front view? If you see that line coming straight down the center of it, it should bisect the center of the feet where you see that red dot between his feet in the front view, going right up the midline to his navel, up to bisect his nose. Is that equal and symmetrical right to left in the front view?
No, he's definitely over shifted over to his left.
Yeah, posture is offset. Yeah.
Yeah, so think about how this might affect his back, right? So we're talking about, by the way, that's the reason he came in. He had lower back issues. Um, so we're looking at all these other joints and why does it matter? Why is his shoulder or his hip he's not here for his shoulder and hip, right? So why is this important for his back?
He's working extra hard.
Yeah. Well, think about that house, right? I mean, if his spine is the house, like he's all crooked, right? So there's more tension on one side of his back than his other side. He's not evenly distributing the load or the weight in his feet, you can assume. Um, Randy said it's the heavy black mask he's wearing that throws his balance off. Yeah, yeah, that black mask, not good, huh? Right hip raised. Yep. So, so that's him after a couple months of doing his exercises. So he has a shirt on now, but otherwise, what changed?
Way better balance overall. The line on the side goes down the midline and the front too. And his shoulders and pelvis look much better. Good job.
Yeah,
John mentioned also fix the foundation and the rest will follow. And look at the difference just in his stance. So he has a very narrow stance in that first picture, whereas he's got a little wider stance where his ankles, knees, and hips are now aligned. So the forces are more equally distributed, feet are pointing straight ahead. So yes, sometimes it's the feet and the ankles as the foundation. I think Zach, if you were to share some of the exercises you did, there was probably some mid-thoracic work and some hip work that you did there too, right?
yeah, yep. It's because when we see this uh, really common posture, I mean, it's not quite a full sway back, but when his hips come forward of his ankles, basically, and that causes the S curve is now all skewed, right? Because we've changed the position of the bottom, so now the upper body's, all the thoracic back is more rounded than it needs to be. The head is more forward, right? It usually comes down to a problem with the pelvis. So when we get the hips doing what they're supposed to, brings them back, ankles, and now his back can be in a healthier position, right? So
And to that point also, Zach, as John mentioned, hands are still rotated. And where does that come from? Because if we do look from the beginning to the end, a lot of times it's the scapular position that makes it look like you can see more knuckles in the front. And if we look at that Freddie function image earlier, we'd like to see the thumbs pointing straight ahead, but that comes from the shoulder position and the upper back position. So ideally, this is what we're looking for, the same amount of space between your arm and your torso, and also then seeing more of the thumbs. So yes, hands could be rotated as a result of, if we look up what's going on above it, his scapular position, his shoulder blades and the upper back. But that looks like the shoulders were drawn back. Over how much time, Zach?
I think it was 2, maybe 3 months.
I'm sure he's still a work in progress, like we all are.
Right. So I mean, he's obviously not perfect, right? I mean, we could be nitpicky here, but you know, pretty amazing changes for a relatively short period of time, right? Um, and yeah, his shoulders still a little rounded. We can see his left hand a little bit more than his right, so there's still something going on up there. But much more balanced than he was here. If you look at, you know, that tilt to the side and the gap
Space between the arms.
yeah, the arms on this side versus that side did improve. So yeah, the good thing is you don't have to look like this to feel good, right? Your body can luckily put up with a little bit of imbalances, right? As long as you're, I mean, it just depends on what you're asking your body to do, but more the more demand you put on the body, the more function or the more better posture you need to withstand those forces. So nobody's perfect, and no adult that I've met has had perfect posture like this yet. So you know, as long as we're improving it and getting more balanced, more stable, we're gonna feel a whole lot better. So all right, just a couple more fun examples of some real people and seeing the kind of changes that can happen. This guy, obviously pretty bent over. I mean, just look at his spine. Like, there's almost no curve there, right? Well, there's no S curve. He's basically shaped like a C, right? Like a shrimp spine. So really not good for your back. That's gonna put a lot of strain on those discs and nerves getting pinched. Combine that with the fact that he's offset to one side, you know, it's just a recipe for back problems. So obviously down here we have the afters showing a much more balanced position. Um, and so, you know, like Laura said, muscles or bones do what the muscles tell them to do, right? So we can change your muscles, right? It's just a matter of doing the right exercises, and your muscles will adapt and hold you in a better position. We could ask about scoliosis sometimes. So, you know, obviously something that usually presents earlier in life, and the sooner you can catch it, the more likely you are to correct it. As adults, you know, if you have scoliosis, we can definitely make improvements in those 8 load-bearing joints, get you more stacked vertically, but we may not, you know, may not be able to fully correct all the curvature in your spine if you're fully grown, but can definitely make improvements. But this just shows how some of those changes can happen at a young age.
I'd like to share, Zach, our dear friend Martin, the previous owner here of the Egoscue of Portland clinic, has scoliosis. I'm inspired by his story. You know, he's 54 now and a competitive cyclist and had a lot of issues with scoliosis and said that he has now corrected that. And anytime he's here in the clinic and I see him, any break that he has, any moment he has, he's against the wall or he's on the floor and he infuses 1 or 2 exercises throughout the day besides his 8 a.m. time that's his dedicated workout time. But you know, it's inspiring for me to see how he still to keep his spine the way it is and to be a competitive cyclist in his 50s and still winning medals that he just puts them in per day. He said we have to tell the body who's in charge and just to make sure it remembers where we want it to be by informing those muscles.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, it's a work. It's always a work in progress, right? It's just like anything else with our bodies. It's not something you achieve a certain level and then you can just forget about it, right? Our bodies are always adapting to what we're using them for. So if you're constantly reminding it, like Martin, you know, doing corrective exercises or healthy movement, your body's gonna constantly be adapting to that and maintain at that level, um, or or not, right? So it's really up to us to make a daily habit of these things. Just like, you know, our food, our diets, you can't just go on a diet for a few weeks, lose some weight, and then go back to eating how you did and expect the changes to last, right? You've got to constantly be treating your body well if you want to maintain those benefits. So this is a kind of an extreme example, but I like to show it because it shows how, you know, even in someone who you might see this lady and think, oh wow, like she's beyond hope. Maybe some people, right? Or oh, there's just something, you know, congenital wrong with her back. She's never going to stand up straight, right? Well, this was actually just after one session. So this is the same day, same outfit, you know, same day before and after. This was from our one of our clinics in Japan. So I don't know the whole story. I heard that she, you know, worked in the rice fields, and hence that's how her body adapted, right? Just like we were talking about, our bodies adapt to what we use them for. So she's just bent over her whole life, then her body's gonna eventually get stuck there unless you do something to correct it. So um, just pretty amazing. But just think of not just her back, but think about her internal organs, right? Like how is she breathing? How is she digesting her food, or how is she, you know, using the bathroom? I mean, it's probably she's probably got other issues too, outside of the back. And so that's something we have to, a lot of people come to us because of some kind of joint pain or something, but then they don't realize all these other health problems that they have, that actually, as they start to get better, their posture improves, they'll start to see these changes in other systems of the body. And that's kind of like a side benefit they didn't even consider at first, right? But
Yeah, Zach, to that point as well, just Randy had made a comment earlier when you were showing your client that we were evaluating his posture on. He asked if the man had lost some weight or some of his belly fat. You know, when we start to realign our posture, our lymphatic drainage works better. Our digestion works better. Our elimination works better. You know, the forces are distributed more equally in our bodies. So we actually look younger. It's, you know, we'll joke sometimes saying it's the anti-aging secret, but we actually do get taller and not only feel better, but the functioning of all organs just starts to work better. And yes, sometimes weight loss without even changing other things, just the distribution of better circulation helps us look better.
yeah, yeah, and even if you don't lose weight, just changing the position of your posture will make you look better, right? Like look at this lady, for example, on the right. Um, you know, kind of initially a little bit stooped over, her pelvis is kind of tucked under, her back's kind of flat, right? And just by changing the position of those joints, so she has a much better S curve now, her head's pulled back, her shoulders are pulled back, she has a little more curve here. She looks younger, right? I mean, she's actually older in this picture, right? At least slightly older, but she looks better because that's, her body's in a better position, you know. When your pelvis is really pushed forward and you're in that sway back, you know, your gut kind of sticks out more, right? Just because you're pushing it forward. Well, if your spine is in a neutral position, it's going to naturally be more, uh, you know, more attractive. But this just shows how, you know, this is can benefit people of all ages. You know, this younger guy, really active, fit, you know, strong, a lot of muscle, but he had a lot of shoulder and elbow, wrist, I think, even problems. And it was because, you know, look how far forward his shoulder's not even barely touching that line, you know, his head, everything, kind of like the first example. Um, and, you know, even someone who's not as young also benefits from this. So it's never too late. You know, people ask us that all the time is, oh, my whoever is I know is, you know, in their 90s and has back pain. Is it too late for them? Can you help them? And I mean, I always tell them as long as they can, you know, as long as they have muscles and can a brain that can control their muscles, they can probably benefit, right? So we can adapt the exercises to any uh, activity level or any ability. I've worked with people who can't get up and down off the floor, or people who are, you know, wheelchair bound, right? So there's always something we can do to restore balance. Anyway, okay, so we're gonna, I think that's enough talking here. Now we're gonna do some experimenting. So if everybody could stand up, and I'm gonna turn off this screen.
The balance test.
Yeah, so we're gonna, if you're comfortable or if you're able to take your shoes off, that'd be great. Um, just because shoes will kind of interfere with this and affect your weight distribution. So ideally barefoot, and just kind of march in place first. Shake out your arms and your legs. Don't look down at your feet. Just put them wherever they feel is natural for you. If you need to even close your eyes, you can so you can focus. But once you're standing still, just relax and draw your attention to what you feel on the bottoms of your feet. Don't try to change anything, but just notice what's happening. Is your weight even on both feet? Is it heavier on one side? Is it heavier on the ball of your feet or back on the heel? Maybe it feels different on your right compared to your left, but just kind of get a sense of that. And real quick, can anybody share what they're feeling at the moment? Where do you feel the pressure right now?
More the weight of my body on my left foot than the right.
More on your left, okay.
The
I'm my right.
same, yeah.
Got a couple left footers here today, huh? Okay. You might feel more on the inside edge of your foot or the outside edge, you know. So,
Heel to the toes.
and this is just we can't take everybody's pictures right now and show you, with the lines on there, but this is something you can do for yourself anytime is just assess the weight distribution because that's just kind of a broad overview of how balanced your body is. We should feel the same on both feet, right? Just like in those pictures, if everything is split down the middle, your right and left side should feel the same. You should feel roughly the same from the ball back onto the heel, 50-50, not heavy on the inside or the outside, just kind of evenly spread. Um, so just make a mental note of what you're feeling right now. That's just an indication that your body's maybe a little out of balance.
Can I
Uh,
just share something there, Zach, real quick? Like, because
yeah,
I've seen this a lot lately, when we do this balance test, your friends, sometimes there are days, and I know I felt it in the past, weight on the heel of one foot and the ball of the other foot. And so that's a really interesting evaluation for yourself because often that shows us that the pelvis is a little bit rotated. And if that's rotated, that can also lead to lower back discomfort or pain.
yeah, exactly. So, all right. So with that in mind, now Laura's going to take us through 3 quick exercises. Just a little caveat here. These are not to treat any specific symptom. We're just trying to give you guys an example, something that you can try and feel an immediate result in your body. Obviously, if anything hurts, you don't want to push through it. So just let us know. We can give you some guidance if you can't do something, but this isn't medical advice or anything. We just want to give you, let's put that out there. So, okay, take it away, Laura.
Exactly. And there's a lot of exercises. Some of you mentioned, I know Diana said earlier, the pain-free book, there's the menu there of different back exercises. Some are on the floor, some are seated, some are standing. We have, 500 exercises that we could give you. We're choosing 3 today that will be standing, that will have an impact on the entire body. The first one is called arm circles. So go ahead and take what we call the golfer's grip position, where you bend your first knuckles in, your thumbs are pointing straight ahead, so the wrists are nice and straight. So take the arms out to either side of your body. And let's make sure that you're still standing with your feet pointing straight ahead so that your hips, knees, and ankles are still aligned. Now with your arms alongside of your body, pull your shoulder blades together first. The shoulders are down away from your ears. And then extend the arms up to shoulder height. And begin circling 6 to 8 inch circles towards the front. Zach's got a good view there to the side. Thank you.
So you
Okay,
follow
so
your thumbs.
go ahead, Zach.
You follow your thumbs. So if they're pointed forward, you circle forwards. Yeah.
So we're starting with those forward circles. Still evenly balanced on both feet. Now we recommend anywhere between 20, 30, or 40 circles. How many are we going to do today, Zach?
You could probably do a full 40. Looks like we
All
could. I
right.
wasn't counting those, so I guess we're starting at 0. 1, 2. Just kidding.
So the shoulder blades stay together, shoulders are down, arms nice and straight, and just keep a solid rhythm. We do want to feel a little bit of a sway going on in the body. Nice. All right, that's got to be close to 40. So relax your arms. Now same thing, check and make sure your feet are straight. You're standing nice and tall. Golfer's grip position, arms alongside of the body. Pull the shoulders back again, shoulder blades together. This time, turn the palms upwards towards the ceiling so the thumbs are pointing back. And we circle to the back. So again, our goal is to do 40 circles, keep the shoulder blades together. So standing tall, maintain that rhythm. Somebody can do a counter. I usually designate a counter.
Yeah. Remember to relax your stomach too. A lot of people will try to brace their core or hold their breath here, but take a deep breath, make sure you're not holding your breath in. Let your diaphragm work. All right. I think that's about 40. You should feel a nice burn in your shoulders now.
Yeah. All right, feel into your feet. Sometimes just after that one exercise, we notice that our balance and the weight distribution is different in our feet. But let's take it into the next one, and this will still use the golfer's grip position. These are called elbow curls. Now, if you have a wall, I'm going to back up and use the wall because it teaches us that vertical alignment. You don't have a wall to lean on, no problem. But I'll just go back and show you here from the wall. You can cue in there, Zach, because I'm not sure they'll hear me from back there. I don't have my mic on today, but the heels, the bum, the shoulders against the wall if you're using the wall.
Yep. So you'll line your heels up to the wall, look down, make sure your feet are pointed straight again. take that golfer's grip and you're just going to put your knuckles right behind your eyes on your temples. So your thumbs are pointed down. Um, Now, this grip is important because it's going to prevent us from doing weird things with our hands and wrists. So keep that grip. So your thumbs are down, your head's on the wall, your shoulders on the wall, your backside, and your heels. And now you'll just think of this like a hinge on your forehead. So it allows your elbows to come forward so they touch, and then backwards and touch the wall if you can. So you're just opening and closing. Notice there's no bend in the wrist. It's all coming from your shoulder. Let's see. So, and by the way, you can do this without a wall. The wall is just nice because it keeps everything in line, but you can do this in lots of different positions. And you might find that it's difficult to touch, maybe in the front or maybe in the back or maybe both. And that just tells you, okay, there's some limitations somewhere in your shoulders or your upper back that's preventing you from going through that full range of motion.
When I feel tighter and using the wall, I often find that my upper back wants to leave the wall. So it's showing me how my posture deviates when I'm just going through my day-to-day activities. I'm sometimes bent forward a little bit. So that teaches our nervous system what straight and that vertical load feels like.
Yep, we're
And
just
pulling those shoulders back and then together, getting the shoulder blades moving. So this is wonderful if you have a curved upper back like most people do, that it re-extends the upper spine, gets us straighter in the upper back by pulling those shoulder blades together. Good. And then relax your arms. We usually do about 25 of those. Okay. And then the last one we'll do is an overhead extension. So still standing with your feet pointing straight ahead. Interlace your fingers and your palms, you're facing forward. Send the arms forward, straight arms, and then upwards overhead as high as you can, keeping the arms straight. And then just gently keeping your shoulders down and your head and neck relaxed. Just gaze your face upwards a little bit toward the ceiling.
And when we do this, we want to make sure that you're not bending your back. Like you don't want to lean back like this. So keep you're really the only thing moving is your arms, well, and your shoulders. Yeah. So now if you can't get that high, if you can't get straight overhead, that's okay. Just go as high as you can. Gently, tilt your head up so you're looking up at the hands and then breathe. Also check that your shoulders aren't rising up into your ears. So you might need to do a little pulling them down your spine a little bit. A lot of us tend to overuse our upper shoulder muscles to elevate them. So just make sure you're not doing that. Keep breathing. We're going to hold this for about a minute. We're almost done. And these 3 exercises, I mean, it took us, less than 5 minutes to do. And that's with explanation. So you could do these really quickly, pretty much anytime, anywhere, right? All you need is the ground. So, all right, let's bring it down.
Shoulders on fire.
Yeah, let's do a little reassessment now. So shake it out, march in place, kind of just reset. And again, without trying to think about it or anything, just notice where you're standing, and as you hold still, where's the weight in your feet now? Does it feel different?
I'm more balanced right to left. I was more on my right before.
Yeah, good. Looks like we lost
Cheryl.
yeah, Cheryl. Oh well.
Diana, do you notice a difference? I think you shared earlier that you were more on one side too than the other.
Excuse me. I just feel more stable on both sides, more even.
Oh, nice. That's good.
Anybody else want to share anything they noticed different after those 3 exercises?
I know Paul would probably felt something different.
Yeah, I'm much better balanced. I feel my toes are on the floor now where they weren't before.
Oh wow, nice.
That's an awesome observation. Yes.
So that's kind of crazy, right? I mean, how did doing some arm movements affect your toes? It's kind of something to think about.
The weight better.
Yeah.
I love to show all the myofascial chains. We have connective tissue that links every part of our body from head to toe. So when we call that the pathway of least resistance, right? Sometimes if one area it's not giving us access, we can work somewhere else, but it has an impact on the entire body. Randy says the circulation in his back feels greatly improved and feels great. Good. Thank you for sharing. I had a client leave today where he had numbness in his fingers because of a neck impingement. He was doing landscaping and really hurt his neck and had some impingement there, swelling in his elbow and down to his fingers, didn't feel them. End of the session, he noticed his hands, the palms were really red. He felt tingling and finally circulation was getting back in there. No more neck pain, and the elbow pain disappeared too. So pretty amazing what we can do just in a short amount of time. And I was reminded how much I like standing elbow curls, Paul. Thanks. There you go. It's right here. Those are your 3 movements on the screen.
Yeah. So again, obviously, everybody who comes in as a client, we're assessing their posture and giving them exercises specific to their posture. But as I mentioned, these are generic ones that hopefully everybody can benefit from. So we'll wrap it up here. I know we're just about out of time, but I wanted to talk about what the next steps are now that you've hopefully learned something today and what you're going to do about it. I mean, it's possible maybe you're feeling still skeptical if you're brand new to this. Totally fine. It's understandable. I was skeptical when I first heard about it. I'm kind of a fact finder, so I like to do my research before anything. So if you want to learn more, the book Pain Free is a great resource. You can find that on Amazon or at your local library probably, and that's going to help you understand the method a little bit more and have exercises for all sorts of different muscle and joint pain that you can try out. And if you're interested in maybe getting some more guidance or have some more questions, if you like to talk about your unique situation with a therapist, we're happy to chat with you and even look at your posture and help you understand what's going on there and why it might be causing your pain. We can do a free evaluation. So that's usually like a 20-minute visit where we're just talking about what's going on and looking at your posture, seeing what might be causing the issues. Not going to necessarily give you any prescribed exercises in that visit, but just to help you understand what's going on more, educate you, answer your questions. So offering that to you guys for free. And then the third option, of course, is if you're feeling like, oh, this made sense. I can relate to the stuff we talked about. You're in pain, you want to be out of pain, you're ready to do the work to get there. Then we would love to work with you one-on-one to take you through that process. And as a thank you for joining us today, you'll get 10% off our normal therapy program, which I'll put the prices here. So we basically offer 2 different packages. And on your first visit, after seeing you and discussing your issues, we'll be able to make a recommendation what makes the most sense for you. But that's kind of how we break it down. They're typically weekly sessions, at least for the first bit. We like to meet with people regularly so that we can, we're always reassessing. We want to see how you're doing with your exercises. Are you doing them correctly, first of all, right? Because that's a big thing, that if you're not doing them 100% correctly, you're not going to get the most benefit. But also, as your body changes, the exercises will need to change, right? You're in a new posture, after doing these exercises than you were the week prior. So we're constantly reevaluating what's working, what isn't, what's your body responding well to, so we take you through these 8 to 16 sessions, and eventually get you to the point where, the goal is to have you know how to take care of yourself, right? We don't want you coming to us every week for the rest of your life. We just want to get you to a point where you're feeling good and able to do the things you want to do, and then help you maintain that. So that's kind of it. I had, here's our contact info. So feel free to reach out if you'd like to schedule that, or if you just have more questions. But now's your chance. If you have questions that didn't get answered, happy to answer them.
I'd love to add in, Zach, and that Pete had just said this recently because people often ask Pete Egoscue himself what exercises he does every single day. And his short answer is it depends. And he does that balance test that we did together, where check in with your feet. What's different Where is your weight? Look in the mirror. Where's your shoulders? Where are your hips relative to one another? And so, yeah, our goal is to give you the tools and the exercises so you can practice that discernment to know, oh, I need this move today. Oh, I need this one today. You know, once you've rebalanced your body, then it's a maintenance program that we just maintain. And just a couple of exercises like we did here, most of you that answered us already felt the difference, which is awesome. And that's what we love to hear.
Yeah. Now imagine if you were doing a routine that was actually like tailored to your specific body, right? You'd feel like
Right.
so
Get results faster.
yeah.
We can do Randy DeSaff location in Portland. We're in Beaverton, and we can do in-person or virtual sessions.
Yeah.
Thank you, Diana. Appreciate it.
Yeah.
Thanks for being here.
The yeah, Zoom works really well, honestly. I mean, we've done a lot more of it since the pandemic, but we've been doing it, for years. Since we don't have to physically touch, as long as we can see you and you can see us, it works just as well, honestly. So,
The clients all over the place. It's fun to do the in-person too. If you are in the area and you can come into the clinic.
yeah, of course. I mean, if you can make it in person, great. If not, um, it's not going to stop you from getting the results you need by any means. So.
Feel free to reach out, Randy. We can chat on the phone, take 15, 20 minutes just on the phone and have a conversation so I can understand your story and what's going on and make some recommendations and answer your questions.
Okay.
Thank you. I
So,
just saw your message. Great.
any other questions we didn't cover yet? Okay. Well, thanks everybody for participating, and yeah, we'll be sending out the recording again. So if you missed some of it or you want a reminder of how to do the exercises, you'll get that recording in your email. So be on the lookout for that, and we hope to hear from you guys soon so we can help you take the next steps.
Thanks for being here, everybody. Thank you, Zach.
All right, thanks. Take care.